Welcome, everyone, to a big episode of the Lore Pod Podcast. I'm your host, Dakota Morgan, coming from Phoenix, Arizona, and today I'm already fucking geeking out about this one. We're going to be talking about Star Trek and Green Lantern. Now, how are we doing that? Guess what? There was a DC crossover, and it is the Star Trek DC Green Lantern crossover. But which Star Trek do you think we're talking about here? That is a good question, everybody, because we are going to be talking about not Next Generation, not the TOS, the original series, or if you're a Lower Decks fan, those old scientists. We're talking about, of course, the J.J. Abrams universe. With that in mind, I should also say that the comic did come out here as a little crossover between the series, between different comic book companies as well. But the characters for Star Trek all are drawn as the respective actors, which is that's got to be incredibly difficult for the artist to do. And really, really tough. But I should also say for Green Lantern and the other Lanterns, guess spoiler ahead for the storyline, but the Lanterns do look very awesome. Like, they have their modernized designs of suits to them and such between all the Lantern colors. And as a huge Green Lantern fan and Star Trek fan, I gotta say, both of which is pretty cool. And you don't see too much, nor do I think will we in the future, see too much of the Abrams universe kind of come to life in different forms. Now, what about the story? You may be asking. Well, let's dive into the story on this episode of the Lore Pod. Now, our story starts on a ruined planet. I mean, clearly it looks like Fallout has happened on this thing. And Ganthet's running around in his robes, the short-loaded blue alien, a.k.a. one of the Guardians of the Universe. And this is where, I should say in the show, you are about to find out about a bunch of lore of Star Trek, but then also a bunch of lore about Green Lanterns. So if you don't know anything about either, sit tight, to say the least. Going forward here, Ganthet is on the run. He's the last Guardian. You can tell he's been through it a little bit, a little rough for wear, and he has 7 Marines with him. All 7 colors, 7 different emotional spectrum, and he's running with them. And they come together, and he is actually transported away. Like, this bright light appears, and he's transported away. And then we just cut to Kirk, to say the least. I'm like, what the hell? We cut to Kirk and the crew on board the Enterprise on the command deck, and they actually arrived on a planet where they said there's no life, but there is some very strange energy readings. And that's where they seem to find the skeleton of Ganthet and all the rings. So what do? They're like, all right, we'll take the skeleton and then take the rings, and we're going to bring it on board because this shit's wild. Now, this is where a Klingon has been intercepted to them, and we're like, whoa, shit. And they're intercepted by General Chin, and General Chin has actually been around for a little bit in the Star Trek lore, and he's definitely one we could do an episode on. But he's saying, I want to bring Kirk to justice. I should also make it clear, the General Chin Klingon, of the Klingon Empire, I should say, let's not be space racist here, he actually did not appear in the trilogy movies. But he's also a pretty big character in, like, original series and stuff. So, very interesting that they chose this kind of villain to bring in, and it's like big kind of iconic villain. They brought it in for this crossover series. That's another fucking cool thing. Maybe one day we'll cover Star Trek and Planet of the Apes crossover. That would be interesting. Now, this is when Scotty comes on the intercom on the con and is telling Kirk on the command crew that things are going weird with the energy reading of the rings, and that the energy reading is increasing. And then the rings break through the containment and scatter across. But in doing so, that breaks the Enterprise's shields. And 4 of the rings, though, do choose some members of the crew. / not. The yellow one does go to Chain. The blue goes to Chekhov. Violet goes to Uhura. And Indigo goes to good old McCoy, who I love. And right as this happens, they all get fancy, cool Star Trek / Green Lantern. Like, the Starfleet and logo is, like, highlighted very much so with the Lantern type uniform. And it's really fucking cool. Hal Jordan, a.k.a. the greatest Green Lantern of all time, has arrived on the scene here, and of course the first Green Lantern has arrived on the scene, and he arrives outside of their ship and tells them that it's a night ship, but he wants to know why his friend Skeleton is on board it, which is a totally valid fucking question. Now, the Yellow Lantern, believe it or not, Chain here, he did appear, went into space outside of his ship. He's like, fuck yes! And he went outside of his ship and creates a large kaiju-esque construct, and it tries to attack Hal. Hal blocks it, but then his shield does break as he got a word about the Red Lanterns was found through his ring, because his ring does communicate with them, as all Lantern rings do communicate with their user. Kind of like an AI sort of thing. Kirk then orders him to attack the chain, but Sulu states that the weapon systems and the warp drive are offline. And for Chekhov, he says, say less, because the blue light then envelops the Enterprise, and then opens fire, and they escape after that. They're like, hey, fuck you, and then they escape. Hal follows them and then comes aboard the ship. Hal introduces himself as the Green Lantern and the commander of the Green Lanterns, and from Earth, and they assumed that the Enterprise and its crew are from the same part of the galaxy he is due to the markings on the ship, which, by the way, is pretty fucking good. That's pretty smart. Kirk then butts in and says, oh, cool, what is a Green Lantern? And they talk, then he explains, about finding the rings and getting to the skeleton. McCoy then arrives from the medbay and tells him not to worry about the crew, and he just begs him for the craziness to stop. Classic McCoy. We cut then to General Chain, who then has actually killed members of the Klingon Council. Government and on people on the ship, and Sinestro then appears to Chain after that and says, hey, I'm the Yellow Lantern commander, you're gonna follow my orders. And it's Sinestro, the leader of the Yellow Lantern Corps, and guess what? You don't fuck with Sinestro, he's going to kill you. Look up the Injustice way he killed Guy Gardner. It's horrific. Hal then stated, and we get this is the dialogue part where we get all the fucking context we need. Hal stated Ganthet used Protocol Last Light, which was only to be used at the end of the universe. Now, if you're putting two and two together here, what happened to the DC universe that Hal and the rings were transported? Now, there's other things that come later, but what the hell happened? And Hal states that the use of the All Rings was able to transport the surviving Lanterns to a different universe, but that power proved too much for Ganthet to bear. And he's a guardian of the universe who has a lot of power, and they're the ones who, in case you didn't know, created the Green Lanterns. They also created a lot of other bullshit too, but that's why you see Sinestro, Hal, and soon to be more, and then also have the rings themselves transported too. And then we talk about how the DC universe ended in that world. So that universe ended because apparently Necron, who looks like a giant Grim Reaper, and has a giant scythe, comes into play later. Necron, who is, by the way, the personification of death. In case you didn't get it from the Grim Reaper, the description here. But he's also the commander and the leader and creator of the Black Lanterns. So imagine the power of the Green Lanterns, right? Able to make constructs, energy, all the shit like that. But you're dead, zombie who follows orders. GG, everybody. That's also a story called Blackest Night, and that happened when the DC heroes / villains and characters, Necron gave the ones who died Black Lantern rings, they gave it to them, and they became zombie versions, and then the ones who were already still dead, so DC heroes and villains that were resurrected, but then the ones who were already still dead came back as well. It was a whole fucking thing. It's a great storyline too. And they did talk about how they defeated Necron at first, but then he came back with a vengeance, and there was too many of his undead forces to defeat because Necron then started to conquer planet after planet after planet, and there's more dead than there were living to combat them. It's Jesus. Hal then talks about the rings and how each color does represent a section of the emotional spectrum: green, willpower, all the stuff like that. Red, anger; yellow, fear; blue, hope, all the shit. And that the rings did escape because those ones needed new bearers, and they get a new bearer after that ring bearer dies. So they had to go off and go find their respective bearers, and who the ring does choose and deems worthy in the universe. And then that cuts to the Red Lantern ring for Rage. That commander, Atrocitus, he's there. He meets the new Red Lantern Glowson, the Orange Lantern bearer. There's only ever been one, so it's kind of funny that there's a second one. But for Greed, that's Larfreeze, alien, beats the new Orange Lantern Decius on the planet Romulus. So we got a Romulan. And then it shows us later on, at the same time, Sinestro and the Yellow Lantern for General Chain. And then that's when some more DC characters appear, because Carol of the Star Sapphires has arrived, and she, which is also the ex / maybe currently dating girlfriend of Hal Jordan, Carol Ferris, and she is carrying the injured body of the Blue Lantern commander, Saint Walker. I say commander, but it's really like the leader of them all, of that sort of Lantern branch. McCoy examines Saint Walker in Bay and says that, at least according to his ring, that he is actually okay. Because you gotta think too, McCoy is a very great doctor, very great medic. But here's the thing, probably never worked on the species of Saint Walker. We should make that clear. So he's like, I think this is good from what I know, and also the ring is telling me he's fine, so I think so. Now then we cut to the old spot of Vulcan, and if you remember correctly, in the J.J. Abrams universe, in the first Star Trek movie, Vulcan is destroyed. So that one's destroyed by Nero and the Romulan Empire, yada yada yada, the first movie. But Necron, the god of fucking death, has then appeared and has made a light appears as well, and a new planet is created in the spot where the old one was dead. So that's gonna be fun. Hal then states to them though, that Necron was defeated before by the White Lantern Kyle Rayner, who was also a Green Lantern, but then transferred to being White Lantern during the whole thing from Darkest Night. But when Necron appeared again, he killed him immediately. It's like one of his first victims was like, fuck out of you. Starbase 12 then contacts this Enterprise and says that they are under attack by a weird type of energy weapon. Which you can figure out what the hell that's going to be. We cut to, so the Enterprise and Hal, who goes ahead of the Enterprise because he can travel faster, shockingly, don't know how, but he travels, it's a lantern, so it kind of makes sense. Travels faster, gets there before the Enterprise does, and he finds Atrocitus and the Red Lantern attacking Starbase 12, and as he goes to try to defend the Starbase, he is attacked by none other than Sinestro and General Chain. Like, what the hell? Why the fuck are they doing this? The Enterprise does arrive. The Enterprise then arrives, and Chekhov uses the light and his lantern ring, puts it around the Enterprise, of course, and that gives the Enterprise a little bit of extra fighting power against Sinestro and the Red Lanterns, of course. But as they are trying to do this, Sinestro then used the power of his ring, which was fear, and used it to show the whole crew of the Enterprise their fears. It's like, oh shit. It knocks everybody to clean the hell out. Hal then goes back to the Enterprise. Is like, what the fuck happened? Shows up and is like, okay, this is bad. But he takes to the captain's chair and then takes over the control of the Enterprise. Uhura then shows up, who was luckily away at the time of the crew trying to fight. She shows up and actually with her power removes the fear of everybody. That's fucking awesome. Could use that for my night terrors. So then Sinestro then takes the fight to Hal and Uhura though to try to battle him out. He's like, I don't care about these normals, but I want to fight the people in power rings because that's Sinestro. But as this happens, Guy Gardner, who you're about to see in the new Superman movie, by the way, Kilowog, big boy hulking alien, and Jon Stewart, you're about to see in the Green Lantern TV show. All these Green Lanterns do show up and they're just the nick of time in our sarcastic ass attitude, and with the power that all four Green Lanterns, with Hal, of course, do contain Sinestro, who then calms the fuck down and then actually agrees to help. Kirk states on this communications that he has found Necron and seems that he has brought back the destroyed Vulcan, so that's going to be nothing but huge ass armies now for him. Scotty then appears from the engineering and states that he has like this weird little white looking ring, and what it is that Scotty has made knockoff rings, and it's like maybe it can give the power of a phaser, put energy still on the people, but it's like a little Kmart version of the lantern rings. But hey, that's still pretty fucking good and still very much solid. Scotty, and he looks at Sulu and it's like, hey, Mr. Sulu, would you like to perhaps test this device since you did not get a lantern ring? And he's like, all right, sure. And that even encompasses Sulu in the white lantern energy. Scotty did it, like, fucking hell. Scotty has stated that he did make a few of these rings as well. And we then arrive at the base of Vulcan, and as they arrive and they get transported down below, the army of undead Vulcans attack them. And Spock has got to be going through all the sorts of fucking emotions. Necron, who has appeared too with him, has been sneakily attacked by Sinestro, who did break his scythe, by the way. So he's got to be like, you son of a bitch. Kirk and Saint Walker are talking during this as they're fighting towards the undead. I mean, aggressively talking, and state that they need to have someone who was like Kyle Rayner and who could harness all of the emotional spectrum. Kirk gets a wonderful fucking idea and gives Spock McCoy's ring. He asked McCoy, of course. And was like, McCoy, give Spock your fucking ring. And he gives, like, McCoy, please give Spock your ring of power. I mean, for the John J. Jones, Spock, you need to give, or something like that. We're off on a tangent here. But this does, as soon as Spock gets the ring from McCoy, he absorbs the yellow, orange, and red ring and takes it those, not from the main lantern bearers, I should say, but from the secondary ones. Killing those people because all three of them are fighting each other in space, since they're the villains anyway. As the villains are just fighting each other in space, not paying attention to Necron at all. And then, of course, the other rings do come down from him as well. But he needs a Green Lantern ring, and they can only get one if one of them is dead, because there was no extra lantern ring. Shockingly. I don't know how that one works, but okay. So then the Green Lanterns do focus their power then on Spock and give him the power of will. With this, Spock is released the life entity, which is this metal-looking alien, just all white though. And that giant thing kills Necron, the undead army, and the whole team is transported off there. They're beamed up, and because it destroyed the planet of Vulcan too. And they do talk about how they had to watch Vulcan die again. It's like, oh, Jesus. After that, though, they do return to Earth for a debrief, and it is fun because you do get to see, like, the Green Lanterns and everyone and the other ones just chilling there in Starbase. Just walking around like, what the fuck? And then they actually set out into space with the Enterprise. But Kirk, Spock, and McCoy have a really fun talk about it after the elephant in the fucking room of why Kirk himself didn't get a lantern. McCoy gives him shit and saying like, well, you definitely wouldn't take yellow because I don't think fear is your thing, and you kind of don't look too good in yellow. Gives him a little shit, but the yellow uniform he already wears. But then Spock said he cannot be determined by one color. And as Kirk thanks him, he does says, well, determining one's whole self by one single emotion is highly illogical. So Spock gives shit to the whole lantern idea, and I love it. This is awesome. And then after that, Hal leads the charge, and they go into space and continue on the Enterprise's mission with the help of the Lantern Corps. Of course, probably not orange and yellow and red, but hey, that's a threat for another day, isn't it? With that, everybody, that is the awesome as fuck crossover of Green Lanterns and Star Trek. Oh, this was one great time. Dare say, I think so. Oh, Shatner for you. But yeah, it definitely was a wonderful, wonderful read. I've read it once. I used to have the issues, and I watched it on YouTube the other day thanks to Comic Pop and a few other videos in order to get all the correct information for you guys here. But this has been the Lore Pod covering this fun, epic story for you. And of course, if you did enjoy it, be sure to subscribe wherever you're listening to this. lorepod.podbean.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever third-party app. And if you want to catch me live, raw, and uncut, by the way, on Twitch, that's CodaRex97. I'm on Instagram at Dakota_Morgan97, X at DakotaMorgan3, and all of this will be in the description box down below. But you all rock. To all the listeners who have been listening to Lore Pod, you are amazing. And be sure to tell your friends. It really helps me out. And of course, the YouTube page where I do video game playthroughs and all the shit like that as well is going to be in the description box down below too. Thanks everybody for tuning into this episode. And of course, I usually have a different sign off every time, but I think for this one, we're going to stick with the classic one I do on YouTube. Stay creative, everyone.